Fantasy and Some Flights, exploring the realms of beer, board games, books, and bourbon.
Welcome to another Fireside episode of Fantasy and Some Flights. I'm Nelson.
I'm Dalton.
And we've got some games to talk about. I don't really have any book topics, but I probably assume you do. Okay, so I can talk about book stuff, but I have so many game things that I need to make sure that this is under a 3-hour-long episode. Therefore, I have reserved those for later. So,
wow, special.
Yeah, basically.
It's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. And really, it's been amplified by my attendance at Origins Game Fair. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about Origins and then some of the cool games that I saw there.
Yeah. But I'm excited. You somehow held off on Origins content while I was hanging out with you this last weekend. So I've actually not heard most of this that Nelson's going to be sharing tonight.
There was a couple of things that I slipped in there that I just could not wait for. But we did see each other. That was exciting. You came and visited, and we played a lot of games. We played a lot of games together, which was fun. We haven't played
new ones for me.
What's up?
Couple new ones for me.
Oh, yeah. A couple new ones for you, a couple new ones for me. And so it was good. We had a couple people over, and so that was a ton of fun. So I was about to say it's been a long time since we have played games together, but then I realized that, I was just at your place and we played games together just about a month ago. So
yeah. But it did create a need where we were we kind of need almost an emergency fireside. We had actually not planned really to record this episode
right
at this time, but it was oh crap, with Origins, the combination of Origins, and then in the following weekend, us hanging out and playing games, we got some ground to cover. So we're gonna throw an episode together.
Yeah, but let's not dally any longer. Let's hit our flights, and then we'll dive right into it. So, Dalton, what is on your flight tonight?
So I'm having a cocktail tonight, something a little different.
Oh, fancy!
Yeah, right, fancy cocktail. So I'm having a Sazerac.
That's a company.
It is a company. Yeah, they make Sazerac whiskey, and then they make a ton of stuff. They're one of these almost shadow companies, I think they are the ones that make Fireball, if I remember right.
They are, yeah.
And they make kind of, to be honest, a slew of low-end stuff. But they do make some nicer high-end stuff. First of all, they just have Sazerac Rye. That's kind of one of their flagships. Maybe not a high-end brand, but it is a fairly common brand and one you see a lot. And then they also have Buffalo Trace, so everything that falls under the Buffalo Trace umbrella. They have Colonel E.H. Taylor. They have Weller. They are the ones that have the rights to Blanton's. So that's the one with the little horses on the top. They have 1792. So it's really just an enormous company. They have Eagle Rare, just a really, really big company that again owns all of these distilleries. I think that's maybe kind of their market model. Their business model is to just go around and buy existing successful distilleries and call it under their name.
Yeah, AKA they had money.
That's right. So anyways, there's also a signature cocktail called a Sazerac, which uses Sazerac Rye. It's kind of a New Orleans cocktail. It uses a liqueur, I guess you would call it, called Herb Saint, which I've never had.
I've never heard of it
before. Yeah, when I saw the bottle, I was I've maybe seen this one before, but it actually looks like bitters, the coloring of Angostura bitters, that.
Okay. Yeah.
It looks very similar to me on the label, but it's not. I mean, it's a full 750 milliliter or whatever bottle.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
I actually tried it straight. The stuff is it's 50% or something, or 46%. Or it's really high, and it's very, very herby and estery almost. It made my mouth tingle in a weird way. It was very strange. You wouldn't drink this stuff straight. I think in the mixed drink, it's a quarter of an ounce. It's just a little bit. So it's the Sazerac Rye, this Herb Saint, just like I said, a little bit, lemon peel, simple sugar, and a bitters. There's a specific type of bitters that you're supposed to use for the official version or whatever, but bitters of whatever you want to make it out of. So the result is you get this semi-sweet. The Herb Saint stuff is very citrusy, so very orange and lemon, obviously from the lemon peel, and then kind of these I don't know, weird floating floral herby flavors that are coming from this really crazy liqueur. So it's really nice. It's very refreshing, very very sweet. It's great for a hot summer day. I assume that's why they drink it in New Orleans.
Right.
It's very crisp, and I've been really enjoying it just as we've kind of gotten through the spring and into the summer. I had gotten this kind of sent to me as a birthday present, like the things that you needed, like everything except for the lemon, I guess.
Yeah, that's a cool gift. Yeah,
I thought so too. Yeah, and like kind of sent the recipe. So it's been kind of like a fun thing to just, now that I have all the official components or whatever, and I have no other way to use this herb saint stuff.
Yeah,
I've been making Sazerac.
Or the Sazerac rye.
Exactly. Or the Sazerac rye. I need to actually like taste it, like do an actual tasting of just the rye. I've like not done that yet. I've just had it in the mixed drink. So, but
cool.
So anyway, that's what I'm drinking. Just something, wanted to kind of share it on a Fireside episode that.
Yeah, so I guess we could probably apply the cheers system to the cocktail as well. But like, where does that fall in the cheers for you?
I feel like if I didn't own the herb saint, I would like never make this drink because it's like such a specific thing. It like tastes terrible on its own. Like I would never use it. But now that I have it, I've been drinking a ton of them. Like all over the place. So at least a 3 cheers. Okay. I definitely want to like try it at like bars and just like see if people like kind of put a twist on it, or if it's a, if it's I feel like maybe in the West here it might be harder to find, like that someone actually has like this, again, this herb saint to use it.
Do you know what the price point on the herb saint is?
Like
it feels
I've
like
not looked it up.
Bitters are fairly expensive, like per volume, right? And so, but this is a 750 milliliter bottle, so maybe it's not, but it's also like 50%. So there's just a lot of factors that I don't know how to quantify in my head.
Yeah. And in terms of like bars are always going to stock bitters. They're going to have like a billion bitters. It looks like it's compared often to absinthe. Like it's kind of a similar flavor profile, I guess. I've never actually had absinthe. I've not tried it straight or anything else. So
I hear it makes you feel funny.
Right. Yeah, and that's actually like not a thing anymore, by the way. When I was like when I was in like college, I totally thought that was like, oh, absinthe is like a hallucinogenic, and like they don't. It's obviously not anymore. Like they can't do that. So
yeah.
It's not like if you just went and bought absinthe from like a liquor store that it would give you hallucinations. So don't be afraid if you want to go like buy some. It's just like it's just a specific cocktail or liqueur or whatever you want to call it now. So anyways, you'd asked me what the price was. It looks like I'm seeing online like in the 35 to 40 range.
Okay, so I mean it is. I would consider that fairly pricey for something you wouldn't drink straight.
Yeah, for sure. Because like I don't know,
but
if
it's going to make you a
lot.
It's
going to make so much, like a quarter of an ounce. There's like 17 something shots, and I don't know. It's a lot. I mean, it's probably like 60 or 70 drinks.
Okay,
that could be made from that like is single bottle
to kind of think about it in that sense, but
yeah.
Nice.
60 or 70 cocktails.
Oh, so. Cool. That sounds fun. Yeah. It's especially nice with how warm it's been recently and how, like, that crisp flavor, like we've talked about the shanties and everything, having those on hot days. This feels kind of like the liquor version of, like, a shanty.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I actually forgot this. I said simple syrup. The recipe that was handed to me actually just said a sugar cube, which is kind of funny because, like, the main ingredient is, like, a 45% whiskey, a 45% liqueur, and like a lemon peel. So, so it was like super boozy the first time that I had it. It was like, oh my God, that's like so much. So I switched it to simple sugar just to like add water. And I usually have it with an ice cube just to like add more water. Otherwise, it's like, oh my
just
God.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's just like straight whiskey. But
that's fair.
So anyways, long-winded, but that's what I'm having on my flight. What's on yours tonight?
So tonight I am drinking another beer from the Treehouse Brewing Company, which is a very famous brewing company up in Massachusetts. And so when we stayed at Origins, we got an Airbnb with Professor Meg, her husband Dan, Roberto, and me. And so they all live in Massachusetts, and they came down and brought a significant amount of Treehouse beer. It was a Yeti full of Treehouse beer, and it was a glorious sight. But anyways, we drank a lot of it. There was actually a couple of cans left over by the end of the weekend, and I took a couple home, and so tonight I am enjoying Emperor Julius. So most of their beers, most of their beers I have seen. I don't know if this is actually true for all of Treehouse beers, but most of the beers that I have seen from Treehouse are IPAs and double and triple IPAs, and they're all kind of made in that New England style or like the hazy style IPA, which is a little bit fruitier, less bitter, sweeter, and kind of like tropical fruit flavors. And this one is no different. This one, they have like their Julius line, and this is really, really good. It's very hazy. It's about an 8.8%, so it is heavy. It is heavy, but it is like sweet. It's really like, it's not refreshing. Like it's sweet, but not refreshing. If like it's hard to kind of, put that flavor profile into words, but it's definitely a 4 cheers for me. If I ever see it, it is something that I do plan on picking up. Everything that I have had from Treehouse has been just insanely delicious. And so it is harder to find. I did see one in the local store here, but I didn't pick it up because I had some at home already. But so this is Emperor Julius. I've had green or fairy green. They have like the Julius line, they have the green line, they have a couple different lines that are made with different types of hops. And so this is the Emperor Julius, which is one of the ones on the Julius line. So I'm very much enjoying that and reminiscing on my time in Origins.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you have, because it's great that you've created some really close relationships with these folks from, that we've kind of got to know through the Board Vendors venue.
Yeah.
So Nelson, since he's become good friends with them, has gotten into the habit of just referring to them by name.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
Can you run through who those folks are?
Yep.
In case
Meg is Professor Meg. Her husband is Dan, and then Roberto is Shearboredom. So
yep.
So all part of the Board Vendors crew, and so I need to remember to call them by the names that they are known for.
Give them a little bit of,
thanks.
A little bit of credit, a little bit of promotion, because we do like the content that they create.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Alrighty, so let's dive into it. So we have a couple of topics, and let's kind of do like a ping pong. So I'm gonna be selfish. I'll start, and then we'll flip over to your topic, and we'll just bounce back and forth until we get too drunk to talk. How about that?
Okay.
Okay, so just kind of general overview of Origins, just in case people are curious about it and have not heard about it before. It is a gaming convention produced by Gamma, so the same people who I went to the Gamma Expo. This is kind of their customer-facing convention. It's held in Columbus, Ohio. It was held over Wednesday through Sunday, and it was smaller than Gen Con. It was definitely smaller than Gen Con. Gen Con has around usually about 70,000 people pre-COVID. Last year, it was about 35. I think it was about half of that. And then at Origins this year, I think there were about 7,000 or 8,000 people. So significantly smaller. But that does open up a lot of opportunities to be a little bit more like intimate with some of the people that are there, and you're not bumping shoulders with everybody. And it felt a little bit more of a relaxed environment, which was a very nice change of pace. The other thing I would say about Origins is it feels like per capita, or per attendee, there seems to be more gaming space than Gen Con. So it feels to be very much a gamers. That was a dumb description. It feels very much like a convention that is very friendly and open to people who want to come in and sit down and play games. They have a full library, so you can come in and check out games and play different games that they have just for free. So you don't even have to pay. You just come in and play. Or you can play any games that you have bought or brought over the weekend, which Gen Con has a library, but you have to pay to get into it. And then Gen Con also, table space can be very limited at sometimes because a lot of the table space is not necessarily used for open gaming, but it is used for tournaments and events and demos and playthroughs and all of this. And so, but yeah, it was a really nice change of pace in that sense. It was a really nice environment. It was a really welcoming environment, which is true for every convention that I have been to, but it's always just nice to go and remember that. But I got to talk with a lot of publishers, a lot of designers, a lot of companies, and they have some exciting stuff coming out, and I want to preview some of that on today's episode. So, the first one, well, I'm just going to keep going. The first one that I want to talk about was my favorite game of the convention, and my kind of most looked forward to games. So if you watch the Board Vendors video, I did talk about this on that video, and that game is called Lunar Rush, which is a game by Dead Alive Games, who has published one other game before called Omicron Protocol. I had a hard time saying that. Omicron Protocol, which is a kind of a tactical mini style game, and was named before the virus, and apparently that killed his SEO. So that sucks. Yeah. he was like, I was number one on all of the search, and then they named the virus Omicron, and that really hurts. So
I bet.
I'm not a huge tactical war game type person. I don't know if I would ever get into it, but it's just not kind of my style. However, Lunar Rush is a mid-weight economic type game, which is exactly what I am into. So it was exciting to see that. I did get to demo that game. And so the whole kind of premise is that there are new minerals and new materials that have been discovered on the moon that people on Earth really want to buy. And so the game is sending units and materials in order to extract these new resources from the moon up from Earth, and then extracting and refining these materials on the moon and then sending them back down to Earth to sell to the general public. And the way that this is carried out is that there are 3 lanes up and then 3 travel lanes down. The longer that it takes to travel, the more capacity your ship has to carry. And so if you're able to plan and say, okay, I know in 3 turns I will need these resources because I'm upgrading these actions on the moon, then you can plan for that and carry 10 resources instead of just 3 resources with the fast route.
Gotcha.
Or it's like you planned incorrectly and you're like, oh, shoot, I need one more worker. I need to book him up here in 1 turn. And so you can plan that your long route that takes 3 turns and then this 1 turn ship will arrive at the same time. So you have the resources needed in order to carry out the actions. And then kind of that's mirrored on the other side. As you send resources back down, you can send them over 1, 2, or 3 actions. And again, carrying capacity increases as you increase your actions.
Gotcha.
And then you're selling to basically a stock market. So once you sell, the price does drop. And so you're kind of banking and playing the other players of, do I need to, can I risk sending all of these resources down, getting there in 3 turns, and making sure Dalton is not going to jump in there and tank the price before I get there and figure all of that out. So
gotcha. And I can choose like later to, follow you up and just send like a 1-turn shipment or something like that just to drop the price a little bit.
Kind of the way that you can think about it is if I send a ship down to Earth that has 10 resources on it, that will take 3 turns. So you will have a turn to load up, send stuff to the moon, refine, put stuff on the ship, and get there before my ship even makes it back. So but you're not going to be able to carry that much. And so you may not be able to tank the price enough, and it still may be financially feasible for me to send the 10. And maybe instead of making $10, and I'm making up numbers, I'm making $8 per unit, but I'm still also selling 10. So I'm out $20. So it was a really fascinating game. We played kind of the first round and then the last round of the game, so we kind of fast forwarded time just because we were a little bit limited on time. But it is one that I plan on demoing over TTS. I'm going to go do a full playthrough at Gen Con, but it was solid. They're looking at, I think they're crowdfunding it later this year, but it's definitely one that I plan on backing because it's really piqued my interest, and the playtime with this whole economic and like action selection type game is probably going to be around an hour to maybe an hour and a half. So it's like right in that sweet spot, really easy to sit down and play. And so it like checks all of those boxes. And so I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, that's definitely shorter than I would have expected.
Yeah, it's only played out over 7 rounds. And so taking 3 rounds to get there is very significant. Like if you think of it that way, right? So you play 7 rounds. It's
kind of your whole strategy.
Yeah. And so you have to plan accordingly. And then there are like victory point cards and everything that kind of modify the game that we left out. He goes, you should play with these and you can play with these, but just for simplicity's sake, we'll explain these after the demo. And that was welcomed because where it's not necessarily a complicated game, there are a lot of little things that you kind of have to plan, and like the actions can be upgraded on the moon, and that takes a little bit of time to get used to. And so there was a lot to take in the demo, but the playtime is very condensed. So looks really cool.
Cool. I'm excited to try it after you buy it.
Well, if we plan on doing a demo on TTS, so I'll hit you up and see.
Oh, cool.
If you're free that day,
sure.
And then we'll try it. Or
Very
if not,
exciting.
I mean, I think it's an open mod, so we can just play it. So
they're usually trying to drum up hype, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So okay, so that was my number 1. I have 12 more things. So your turn.
Yeah. So hitting up our hitting up our weekend, since it's my turn to have a topic, hitting up our weekend together. We played a lot, and I really enjoyed playing, getting to replay some old games, getting to learn some new ones. I feel like we had a good sort of like variety in type of games, and that was kind of driven by the people that were there, which is always really fun, because you and I, as much as like I love just playing games, the two of us, we will tend to like sort of a slice of the rainbow that is like all the variety in the board game world, you know?
Right. Yep.
So it was nice to be able to like have a little bit of variety. Anyways, we did try Terraforming Mars Aries Expedition, which is a game that I've been really interested in a long time. And I know it came out in like 2021, so we're a little bit behind in terms of kind of bringing it onto the podcast for a discussion. But also it's had some time within the community. People have had time to develop their thoughts on it. And so I want to talk about that because it is a topic of conversation, and I kind of want us to have a chance to put our 2 cents in about it. And so first of all, if you're not super familiar with it, hopefully you are familiar with Terraforming Mars, the actual base game.
We have a whole episode.
Yeah, we did a whole episode on it, so you can go listen to that. Terraforming Mars basically put out this game. It's not an expansion. It's not a reprint. It's just a different game with the Terraforming Mars like branding on it and like IP on it. So it has like the same corporations that are trying to do the same types of things. It has very not one-for-one cards, but cards that are themed very similarly and everything. And the object of the game is still to terraform Mars. And so the game will end when you place all of the oceans, when you get oxygen to a breathable level, and when you get temperature to a comfortable level. Those 3 conditions, Mars is considered terraformed. But the way you're getting there in Terraforming Mars the base game is fairly complicated. It's a fairly heavyweight game. Really big engine builder, and has Euro type components, and it's just a really large game. You're drawing cards, playing cards. You have all these different things going on. Aries Expedition, the goal was to try and trim that down, right? So to put out more of a medium weight type game that was accomplishing the same thing. The way that they did that is they took the sort of action. I don't even know what you would call this, but action selection, action activation, maybe.
I would say action selection.
Does it feel like action selection? I mean, I guess it kind of is. But anyways, that mechanic out of Race for the Galaxy. So where the very first thing that you do in a round is you have 5 almost like phases, but they're basically individual actions that can be activated on a given round, and you choose one of them, and everybody else at the table chooses one of them. And every action that is chosen, the players go through in that round. They go through and they do those actions. And if an action is not chosen, then you don't get to do it. So there's this little bit of like, what do I think other players might choose? Do I want to choose something else? It also provides you a bonus if you are the one that chooses the round. So where everybody gets to produce, you get to produce, and you also get 4 money. Or everybody gets to play 1 card, you get to play 2, stuff like that. So there's also like maybe a little bit of a driver just to kind of play the card that you precisely need. And so anyways, that's the umbrella of the game, just an overview of the game as short as I can give it. In terms of our thoughts on it, I think the summary would be you can either own this game or you can own Terraforming Mars and Race. Race for the Galaxy. It is kind of difficult to own all 3. And even if you own already one of those, this one might be a hard game to buy.
Unless you're me, in which case...
Every game has a place.
Yeah, as long as I have shelf space. No. But no, I agree. I think that it's a Venn diagram with 3 overlapping spots, and you only need 2 overlapping spots.
Yeah.
So, and my thought would almost be that I would probably say you either choose this or Race for the Galaxy. Like, I think that this game is different enough from Terraforming Mars that I could justify having both of those, but I don't know if I would necessarily want to justify having this and Race in the collection. That's a harder argument for me to make because they are so similar.
And I'm wondering, like, if it's that way because we know Terraforming Mars like so well. Like, that's true. That's true. Did the uniqueness of Aries Expedition kind of get lost a little bit? Like, because we're familiar with the theming, we're familiar with how the money works, we're familiar with how all the engine components work. So it feels like you're just kind of like playing Race for the Galaxy with like Terraforming Mars stamped on top of it instead.
Right.
But if I had only ever played Race for the Galaxy, I would like definitely recognize the like main mechanic in the game, this action selection mechanic.
Yeah.
That would be like very familiar. But the way that all the cards interact would be very fresh. The idea of terraforming would be very fresh. How the victory point system works would be very different. So there are definitely like distinct differences there between the two games. But it kind of does feel like 50-50. I would almost say instead of like a three-way Venn diagram, it feels like it's a two-way Venn diagram, and Aries Expedition is just right in the middle.
Yeah.
It's hard to justify.
It is the middle. Yeah.
It is just the middle slice.
No, yeah, that's good.
And it's hard to justify owning it with, for me, with either one. But again, you're right that is a tolerance issue between different gamers. How much do they want games to be similar? So that's something you maybe have to decide for yourself. It's definitely a game worth trying. I was so glad to have played it.
Yeah,
it was a lot of fun. I think it had fairly solid mechanics. It was a little bit broad, maybe. In terms of like experience, we had talked about like it wasn't that much shorter than playing Terraforming Mars.
Yep, that was my big issue with it.
Yeah,
is I was looking at kind of the play times, and granted, I have only played 2 games of Aries Expedition, and basically both games were learning games because there was a long enough gap in between the 2 games that I did kind of have to relearn a lot of the mechanics. Mm-hmm. But I've averaged an hour and 45, and that was with a 2 and a 3-player game. And with Terraforming Mars, which we have a lot more experience with, so take that with a grain of salt, is about 2.5. And so it's 45 more minutes to pull out the full meaty version of Terraforming Mars. And if Aries was an hour, it would be a different conversation, I think.
Yeah, 100%. Especially specifically because Race for the Galaxy is like 30 minutes or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I think I averaged 22. So
yeah, it's so much shorter. And it just fits really, really well. Like you get such good content in those like 25, 30 minutes.
Very.
Where like Aries Expedition, I did feel towards the end, I don't know if this is an us thing. I don't know if we were slow, if we weren't terraforming enough. We're used to like engine building in Terraforming Mars, and so like maybe that was slowing us down, not playing the game or whatever, like playing to end the game.
Right.
But it did feel like it was just kind of dragging in like the second half of the game. Like we were like, man, is that as far as we've gotten in like temperature? Like it's only like 5 steps up. We have like to do 20 or something. How have we only gotten this far?
Very exponential in the game that we played.
Yeah, it did explode for sure.
Because we went from about halfway up, and I think we like increased heat like 4 to 5 steps, oxygen about the same amount, and flipped 2 ocean tiles. And it was just like, we just like ended the game and did almost like 30% of the terraforming in one round. Like it was just like an insane rush towards the end, which maybe that is how it is. And if that's how it is, you can adapt your play strategy to that. But I was just like, I'm sitting here looking at all the cards. I was like, I have a lot of cards that I wanted to play. So,
yeah. And I think, too, when we talk about timing, we are comparing like our learning games, which we like, because we were so familiar both with Race and Terraforming Mars, I don't think that our learning added too much, except for that we might have been just doing the wrong thing. But our turns were fairly short. Like it wasn't like we were sitting there having to look at the rule book and just try to figure out how to play. There wasn't very much of that. So I feel like maybe it could have been an hour and a half versus our like hour 45 play.
Yeah.
At like experience level, but we're comparing like maybe a slightly high estimation of Aries Expedition to like a fairly short expectation for Terraforming Mars, because I have played like 3.5 hour, even I think I've played like a 4-hour game of Terraforming Mars. That game can get very long.
It really can, yeah.
Especially with like new players and stuff, it can be up there. So it might be fair to say that like Aries Expedition does cut the game time in half. I just don't think that even if it's cut in half, I don't think it's justifying like an hour and a half. I think you're right. I really wanted it to target like an hour, and it just wasn't quite there. It was pretty heavy to try and finish within an hour.
Yeah, part of me wants to run it back with my wife and just a 2-player game. Now that we like the rules are fresh in our head, and see where that playtime falls. Because I think a 2-player game actually takes longer. Right?
It might. I mean, like because of the action selection, like theoretically fewer actions are selected each round for the players to take.
And you don't have to terraform any less.
Yeah. So you will definitely play more rounds for sure. I don't know if that will make the game longer.
True.
Theoretically, it should make the game longer because everything in the game is simultaneous. And so theoretically, yes, it should make the game longer.
I'm interested in trying that at least because...
Yeah,
if you do know what you're doing, if you do get in the groove, if you can cut it down to under 90 minutes even under 60 minutes, then I think that this game becomes a lot more justifiable in my head. But as of right now, after 2 plays, it is kind of, I have a shelf that is like, these are the games I'm looking to trade, and it's inching closer to that shelf.
Yeah, especially because the spot it occupies in the Venn diagram.
Right.
To close out, like, that was kind of our experience conversation. To close out the components part, it definitely has some misses in components. It feels a little bit rushed. It feels a little bit like playtesting didn't get all the way through it. There's like a lot of fiddly little cubes that have to like sit in their just right spot on this cardboard. And Terraforming Mars suffers from this too. You like really need dual level player boards or something. But Aries Expedition, because it's a physically smaller game, that problem is kind of exacerbated a little bit because all of your stuff feels closer together and cramped, and you're like so nervous you're gonna hit something and knock stuff out of its spot or whatever. I didn't really like that. There were like things that just didn't quite like fit, like a cube that wasn't like quite the right size to be on its spot. It was slightly too large or whatever. And then when we were trying to play with 3 people, it's like all of you have to like sit on this spot. And if they were like flat pieces that stacked nicely, that wouldn't be a problem. But they're just a plastic cube, and I don't want to stack a plastic cube on top of another plastic cute. It just physically it didn't work very well. Though I will say that the artwork was very nice. So that was very high production value.
The artwork was definitely a step up from what Terraforming Mars was.
For sure. And also just like the quality of like paper components we had mentioned, both the rulebook and the actual cards felt very high. And so that was like part
a nice
of the
linen finish type deal.
Yeah.
And I will say that I bought like the retail Target version of the game, which I believe if you buy not that version, it does come with dual layer player boards.
Okay.
But I think I only spent like $30 on it. And so
that's nice.
Yeah, so it's like it's a good bit of game for $30.
Oh yeah.
I think I did get it on sale, but it was at Target, so
yeah. I would wonder a little bit about replayability. I would just maybe wonder.
Yeah.
How much time do I want to invest in that game over and over and over?
Right, because again, if we're comparing it to Terraforming Mars, there's a lot of replayability because there's a lot of strategies. It's a very strategic game, and if you compare it to Race for the Galaxy, it's very replayable because it's 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. It's maybe kind of hitting an awkward spot between the two of those, where it's where it is successful at neither.
Yep.
The last thing I want to say, this is something we talked about at length, and so I just wanted to bring it up on the podcast. There have been a lot of critiques of this game. That is basically just stealing the Race for the Galaxy mechanic, the action selection mechanic, which at the time when that came out felt super unique, felt very fresh and interesting, and the whole game was built around just this mechanic. And it was exciting, and it was cool and new, and it's a Renaissance feeling, and we loved it, right? And so then Terraforming Mars came in, and they kind of stole it a little bit. And it's really like flagrant. Like the actions are similar. There are 5 of them. Just like there are 5 of them in Race. And because it's so central to like what you do on your turn, even though like rules wise, it's actually fairly small. Like you can explain it in 2 sentences, like what is going to happen. And then the rest of it is explaining what the actions do. But the actual mechanic of, the players each select one, those are the only ones that are active. Like that's all you need to know. So within the rulebook, it's a fairly small portion of the weight of the game.
Right.
But because you interact with it so heavily each round, and it's so important to what you're doing, it feels like a very large portion of the game, and it feels like they just kind of ripped it. The flip side of that is this is kind of what games do, right? Like, we had mentioned Dominion as an example. Like Dominion was a deck builder. When that came out, it was super fresh. It was new. Nobody had ever done something like this before. And now there's a bunch of deck builders. They sort of like defined its own genre. It's like Mumford and Sons or something, right? Like,
yeah, right.
Where it just defined its own genre, and everybody started doing it because it was so cool.
Yeah.
And so maybe it's okay, and maybe for us as gamers, like this is a good thing. This is the evolution of the industry, and like we should be happy for it. But something about it just leaves a little bit of a bad taste in your mouth where you're like, I don't know that this was totally kosher.
Right. Yeah. And I think we had also kind of compared it to worker placement or something like that, but I don't know what it is. It doesn't feel like they improved upon that mechanic enough. And it's a unique enough mechanic that I felt like it needed to be improved on a little bit more. Actually, I said enough. I don't think that they improved on it at all. I think it is pretty much the exact same.
Yeah. So it's Control-C, Control-V, slap Terraforming Mars IP on it.
Yeah. And so I know a lot of people were fairly frustrated with that, and I can see why. But
for sure, it feels a little disingenuous, especially because like Race is a smaller game and Terraforming Mars is like has been top 5 on Board Game Geek, right? So it's enormous, and it kind of feels like the big guy picking on the little guy a little bit, and that maybe doesn't feel super good.
Yeah,
but I would love to see more games use this idea of this form of action selection. It is fun. I could see like a game, for instance, like even if like it hadn't been blind, right? Like if there's a player's like turn order system, so you pick one and then the next person picks one and then the next person picks one or something like that. That feels a little bit like even Twilight Imperium has like the feeling of drafting the strategy cards, and that, I don't know. There's a lot of ways it could have been improved and it just wasn't. And so it feels a little bit of a cop out. But when you see reviews for this game, the reason I'm bringing this up, if you haven't, is they're very polarized, and some of that is because people are reviewing it for what it is, and some people are reviewing it in light of Race for the Galaxy and saying they shouldn't have done this, and they give it a really low rating for that reason.
Yep.
Not saying right or wrong. It's just like why you see the reviews that way.
Yep. Nope. Totally. So the next thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is more of a. This episode is very spread out. I'll just say that now, but this is what we're here to do. The next episode, the next topic that I wanted to talk about is kind of this push that we have seen for these like overly produced, luxurious, deluxeified type games. And so this right now, they did a new version of Castles of Burgundy, which is really nice, has like all these 3D pieces. Kaleidope just did, or has right now on Kickstarter, Suro. So it's the tile laying. Have you played Suro? I think we
I played it. I think once in like a coffee shop.
Right, where it's a it's a very light game where players are just pulling tiles, playing them, and trying not to run off the board. And like now it's on Kickstarter for a $350 fully deluxe luxurious price tag. I mean, it looks gorgeous, right? It's a big wooden box. It's cast metal. The tiles are stone. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on like the deluxeification of some of these games, because I'll let you respond and then I'll say what I have to think.
Okay. They're playing to collectors. Right, it's a money grab to collectors, and so there's a group of people out there who will pay for this. Right, they have expendable cash, and they like to have the really nice version of something. Right, this happened. It was not the first, but my first interaction with this concept was with Catan. Right, where they put out those huge like
the $250 version of Catan.
Yeah, they put out and it became an investment opportunity. Honestly, people were buying like 10 or 20 copies, holding on to them, selling them later for like a game. It was stupid in my mind, but people, whatever makes you happy, right? If you want to spend your money, and that's what brings you happiness, and spending your money, that's great, good for you. I think it's a little bit presumptive of Suro to claim that spot, right? I think this can be done for like a 20-year release of Catan, sure, in my mind. I know that Suro is a popular game. People have played it, but it feels like Santorini coming out with like a mega produced value game, and I'm like, I'm not going to pay for that.
Yeah. And that's totally fair. So I put out a poll on Instagram, which is still going, so the results may be a little bit different by the time the poll ends, but I basically asked, like, what are your thoughts on these luxury types games? And there's the love it, there's if it's the right game, I would back it, and then there's I would never back one. And it was I'm actually kind of surprised. So 33% of people said love them. They absolutely love them. 47% of people said if it was this right game, I would back it. And then 20% of people said I would never back it, which I thought that was kind of interesting. And I mean, Suro itself has 10 days to go and is $250,000 of an $80,000 goal. So obviously people enjoy it and like it. And I think it is kind of this, if you can find the right luxury game, then it is almost like it's like a nice leather bound book, right?
Yeah.
Like think about it like that.
Comparison.
Or it goes on the coffee table, and you probably aren't going to play it, but it's like a piece of art. And so it's just something that we've seen a lot in the industry recently, and we haven't really talked about. And like, I don't rate components high, right? Like 10% of my mech rating is in components, but I'm also looking at the Zero game. I'm like, damn, that's really beautiful.
It is. It's gorgeous. Like, it kind of tries to justify its price tag, right? Like, I think just in components alone, it gets, like you said, it's a work of art. It's very, very pretty. Great woodwork, and I don't know. I'm a fan of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely like the rule book is on a bamboo scroll. Like it. Yeah. They went all out, and so I just wanted to touch on it just to kind of get your thoughts on it, because we are seeing a lot of these, but it's also, I want to play a lot of games, and if I spend $350, that means I'm not buying 6 games.
Yeah,
basically. So
exactly. Yeah, this is not for people who are on a budget. This is that's not how this works. It could also be like, maybe it's a good present. I could see somebody like that. Yeah. Really enjoying this as like a gift.
Yeah.
I think like the core of how I feel about it is like, this affects my life basically not at all. Like, if this makes people happy, good. I'm so glad. And if like it allows the the creators and the producers of the game to put out some other game, because this is basically funding it, then good for them. I'm excited to see what that next game is. I just like, there's also been an ancillary push, I think, to really drive up the component cost of like just base games, right? And some of this comes from goals and whatnot and crowdfunding operations, and so some of it is that, and they find that people are willing to pay for it, and so that's great. But it also, for me personally, as someone who, again, like you said, like I expect a game to not fall apart. And I do, like, I have, especially when I'm interacting with the game, I have a big push for components where I'm like, okay, now I'm like in Aries Expedition, where it's like, this is now impacting my ability to play the game, and I'm really frustrated with that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But in general, if it's going to like drive up the price of a game significantly, then I would prefer that it wasn't in there. There's a big push for large minis, and stuff like that, where people want to be painting them, and I'm like, I don't know, just give me the pretty mini, like already done, or just give me a token, like standees. Like, this is not that important to me, and I would like to own this game, but now I can't, because it's like $20 more expensive than it's really worth for its gameplay, and it's annoying, right?
Yep. No, totally agree. Something that I want to start doing is in these Fireside episodes, when we talk about games, I want to put links in the show description so people can easily find them. And so I'm looking at the Kickstarter right now, and if nothing else, you should at least go look at it. And so I'll drop the link in the show notes, or not. We
can't show it to you in this medium. You have to go look it for yourself.
Right. But the link will be down there, along with the links of the other games that we have talked about, just so you can easily find those and access them. But I mean, like, I don't even think I enjoy Suro. I think it's a good game, but I'm just like drooling over this. Like,
it's sexy. There's not another word for it. Like, it is sexy.
Yeah, it's a fabric playmat.
Yeah. This game fucks, that's for sure. This game smokes cigars and
drinks whiskey.
It actually doubles as a humidor.
Oh man, that's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know which category you're in, like love it, would do it for the right game, or never. But let's assume you were in like the would do it for the right game. Like what would that game be?
I was very much considering Castles of Burgundy. Right. I think that was a good one.
That was specifically like a low production cost game, right? That components wise, where we always joke about space stations in Maroon or whatever, right? Because the theme and the components are like really basic. So there's definitely room for that to throw something on it.
Yep. If I had not already 3D printed all of the tiles for Terraforming Mars, I would have backed the Terraforming Mars big box. So like that was
not that we condone copyright infringement.
No, and I printed them before that was even announced, and so I feel a little bit better about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I love Terraforming Mars. It was my favorite game at one point, and I enjoy like the 3D and what picture and world that kind of creates of putting those tiles out on the board. So I would have done that if nothing else, for the storage solution, because it does combine all the expansions into one box, which is really nice. But I really did think about Terraforming Mars, Castles of Burgundy, and I guess I should probably give an answer that is not already been produced. Okay, so I think I would probably I would be interested in kind of a deluxeified version of like a Food Chain Magnate. So something that has very low components. The problem there is that I don't get to play Food Chain Magnate all that much, but it would also be kind of fun to have some sort of deluxeified version of that. What about you?
Yeah. Pokemon Master Trainer, 1999 edition.
Yes. Absolutely.
Partly because I just wanted to be reprinted.
Yeah, right. I actually, the deluxeified components at this point is a cardboard board. So
That's right. That's right. But can you imagine, I don't know, like you have your little trainer as like a physical little model,
That'd be so cool.
And instead of chips, it has like little Pokemon models, and maybe you get to like clip little Pokeballs onto your little belt or something.
Oh, that'd be so cool.
I know, dude. Oh, I'd be so into it.
Yes,
God, I would spend so much money.
Yeah, shut up and take my money.
Exactly. It's already like, to find a version of it's already like over 200. So
right. So the deluxeified version probably could possibly be cheaper.
Exactly. It could possibly be cheaper. I'm basically saving money, and plus you get Pokemon. So
yeah,
there have to be like so many models though, because it's like 150. I don't remember if it's 150 or 151. But there's already like 150 something. Like chips in the game to represent the Pokemon, right? So
yeah,
you have like that many models and then multiples of them to like make sure that everybody it would be stupid, but
it'd be fantastic. Is what you mean?
I would buy it. I'd totally buy it.
That'd be incredible.
If you don't know this game, like it's very like it's a very millennial thing where like this game came out and it feels like everybody who was like into Pokemon at some point played it. I know that we owned it at some point. We had a version of the game. And it must have gotten sold in a garage sale or something. We probably moved. My parents got rid of it
for $5.
It was probably $5 exactly. And this game was a goddamn masterpiece. And it was it was only because you had to love Pokemon. It's broken basically. Like it doesn't really work, and the end of the game doesn't make sense. And but you should go look it up if you like Pokemon.
Yeah,
it's really funny.
Oh man, that's a fantastic choice. That's a great one. If nothing, to just get it again.
Just get the game. I just want to play it once. I just want to play it once more, and then I'll be like, that's right. It sucks.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
Feel better.
That's real bad.
Exactly.
Oh, that's funny.
You want to do a book topic? We've hit.
Yeah, let's do a book topic. Here. Yeah, your turn to do a book topic.
All right, a little bit of housekeeping first. So I'm continuing to read Wheel of Time. I'm in book 6. This is really where people fall in love with the series. Like these kind of middle books are really the meat of it. So
Whoa,
I'm
like halfway there.
I'm not though.
Isn't it 12?
Oh, it is. Yeah, there's like I think there's like 14 with like novellas and stuff.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah. So I'm like, I think I might be on the plateau. I don't know, and it'll start to go down at some point. But right now it's like super good, so I'm loving it. But when we have talked about the show previously, I've said some things that are just factually inaccurate. So now that I know more about the story and I know more about like the writing style and the author, I just want to share some things. So I had one complaint that I had about the show was that I felt it was too sexy. I felt that was kind of added in. I mean, that was unnecessary, an unnecessary addition. I had also mentioned that in the book, that the characters are, I think I said like 15 or 16 or something like that. So both of those things are inaccurate. So the characters are 20 years old and they're presented that way in the show. So that is an accurate detail within the show. So I felt I needed to correct that. And then while there definitely are not sex scenes within the show or within the books. There definitely are in the show. Within the books, there are scenes where sex is definitely implied. So where two characters it like skips to like maybe after, and they're like in a room together and interacting. But it talks about how they're like how there's bare skin and stuff, and it doesn't describe anything sexy. It's definitely happening within the story.
Yeah. So it wasn't unprecedented necessarily.
Yeah, and I still think that the way it was presented is much more heavy-handed within the show than it is within the book series. It's definitely kind of skirted around. But there are characters which are a little flirty and which get into romantic storylines with other characters within the story. So it's just something I just felt I needed to correct. That was the first thing. The second thing is that I've said before that he Robert Jordan, the author, was Mormon, and that's not true either. So he is Episcopalian, or was. He's passed now. So it is a denomination of Christianity, but it's definitely distinct from Mormonism, and those have very different implications. So I just, it's not actually relevant to a lot of our content, but because it was inaccurate, I wanted to correct that. So, anyways, an update of where I'm at in the Wheel Time series, towards the end of book 6, and then some factual corrections. So, but the book I wanted to talk about is Anansi Boys. So I read a book called Anansi Boys. This is a fairly famous Neil Gaiman book, one of his bigger titles. And this is one I picked up in a bookstore just because it was used and cheap, and I had heard of it and really liked Neil Gaiman, so I picked it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really know anything about it. I kind of just opened the book and started reading it, which is kind of a fun change of pace because usually there's like at least a little bit of research that I've done. But this one was just that I've heard of the book and I've heard it's good and I didn't know anything about it. So the concept of it is that gods exist, just to ruin, the same experience for you. But if I can't talk about it, then, we don't have anything to talk about. So,
Fair.
But just to prompt it, like this, as Neil Gaiman books go, I felt was a little bit more easy to get into. He can be he can make a lot of like implication and be like a little like wordy and even like confusing when things are like softly worded or implied where you're like, wait, like, but what happened though? Like now I'm confused. Like I get that feeling a lot. And this one was a lot more direct. I got that feeling with like Neverwhere and some other things where there's like dark, confusing, mysterious magic going on. And you're like, I don't understand what's happening, And this one was a lot more direct.
Okay.
And so I enjoyed that about it. I think if you have not read Neil Gaiman, I have not read all of his work, but of the work that I have read, this one might be a good place to start, I felt like. Because it kind of eases you into his style of writing, and it eases you into his style of soft magic and how he handles it.
Very cool.
Yeah, but the concept is that basically a guy, just like a normal guy, he's like an accountant and has a fiance and lives in England, finds out that he is like the child of a god, and that kind of turns his life upside down. That's basically
that's going to throw a wrench in the plan.
Yeah, exactly. And the way the like gods work is they are kind of like tied to like animals.
Okay.
And so there's like a tiger god and there's like a bird god or whatever. And so I think it's maybe revealed a little bit too late in the story to talk specifically about like what his father was tied to. But it does kind of like tie into like what he can do and what his... But I think I can say that part of, because it's declared very early on, that part of like what his father does is he's very like tricky. And so it feels maybe even like a little Loki-like.
Oh, okay.
And maybe not quite that much, but he's like kind of a little mischievous and a little bit of like a punk. And he actually like, he is kind of estranged from his dad right at the start of the story. And so kind of like having to resolve some of those issues on top of like inheriting some of his like responsibilities almost is kind of what makes the story fun. I think it's about all I can say about it without like ruining too much, but it's not a long read. It was like a fairly, wide margin book with spacing and fairly large. I did read this one physically, so I don't have an audiobook hour rating for you. I think it was around like 330 pages maybe.
Okay.
And not a ton of content on each page. So it was fairly short. But I was really looking forward to reading it at night. I was super into it.
Well, that does sound really interesting. I'm just kind of looking online as you're talking about it because it's not something that I have ever come across. Yep. But they are doing a Amazon Prime series with Whoopi Goldberg as the star. So,
really? Well, that's hilarious.
Yeah. So that's currently.
Does he give you like her character name? Like who is she?
She is
only because, like I said, the main character is like a son and father. So
Bird Woman.
Oh, nice. Okay. She's the bird guy. That's sweet.
So it says it's an upcoming fantasy television miniseries. So I'm not quite sure when that is releasing, but it is slated for a 6-episode miniseries. Cool. So that's all I know about it. That's all I can contribute to the conversation.
That's not totally surprising though, right? They did Good Omens in kind of the same way, which is another Neil Gaiman book. That one's about like the end of the world, like the biblical apocalypse, and so there's like an angel and a demon who are trying to kind of work together to stop the apocalypse because they kind of like how the world is, and so that's the concept of that one, and it makes for a really good short series. So I think that's pretty wise and
nice.
I'm trying to see if I just know any. I don't know any of these other names.
I didn't recognize anything.
Yeah. Does it give you, just as you're looking at that, does it give you like a time frame?
I was trying to find that before I jumped in with the meat of my contribution to the conversation here. But it says that in July of 21 it gave the production series an order of 6 episodes, and that they are I don't see if filming. Oh, filming began in November, so my guess would be probably later this year.
Okay,
or
cool.
early next year.
Yeah. So I mean, I think compared to other like shows that have books around them, this would be a super easy one to like, watch first and then read, or read first and then cool. Watch, just because it's not that long. So.
Yeah, I don't think I have read any Neil Gaiman, so I need to. This may be that stepping stone into the Gateway Neil Gaiman book.
The Gateway Gaiman.
The Gateway Gaiman. There we go. Okay, I like it. Trademark. Put our name on it.
Put our name on his name. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
sure that would go well.
Alrighty, I got one more thing to talk about.
Cool. Yeah. Go ahead and share one more.
Well, actually, no, I have way more things, but I want to be aware of our time. But
Sure.
the last thing that I want to talk about is another game that is coming out soon from Addix Games, ADDAX Games, which is a fairly unknown publisher. They have done one other, quote, not necessarily game, but expansion to Gloomhaven. And so Gloomhaven is under a Creative Commons license, and so they put out a expansion called Crimson Scales, which is a fan-made expansion for Gloomhaven that has over 70 scenarios. I mean, it's a very involved expansion to Gloomhaven. They sold it at cost, and so it's, they weren't looking to make money off of it just to get the content out, but now they are producing their own game called Rove, or Project Rove. And so this game feels very much derived from Gloomhaven and that system where it's kind of a dungeon crawler storytelling type game where you're playing a character that gets leveled up and you interact and fight monsters and everything. So we did a demo at Origins, and just with one little caveat, I have not heard or know any part of the story of the game, and so I cannot speak to that. But in our full scenario, we did a full scenario playthrough of the game. Mechanically, I think it is a stronger game than Gloomhaven.
Wow.
It was very good. It was very, very impressive. It's very similar where, on your turn, you get to take your actions and you have cards, but the cards are not in your hand. They are on the table, and they are double-sided cards. And whenever you take the action, you will flip that card or flip multiple cards based on kind of what the card tells you to do. So you can't spam one action. And so that was really cool, and it's kind of a fun puzzle because there are rally cards, there are rave cards, and there are react cards. So rally cards kind of build up your skill points, which you will then use to spend as a resource to trigger your big rave cards, which are these big actions, big really involved in your character special ability type actions that are pretty game changing. And then react is something that I think would have been a good thing for Gloomhaven to include, where it's if an enemy moves next to you, activate this action and you can move 3 spaces. So it's like a reaction in Pathfinder or something like that, where you're reacting to an action that was taken by the enemy. But it's a fun puzzle to try and figure out how to build up your skill points to activate, and that was really cool. The characters seem really cool as well. There are 2 basic actions on each character that you will always take, or that you have the option to always take. So instead of playing a card to move in Gloomhaven, so you play 2 cards in Gloomhaven, you're saying I'm doing this and I have to use this for a move, you always have that option in Rove. And so that allows you to kind of have more fun with it, right? I don't know if it's a less punishing game because of that, because the monsters did seem a little bit harder, but so it's I can always move, I can always do this attack or whatever, and then I get to do one of my cards. And so that was really fun for me. But it does seem like they have learned a lot from just being massive fans of Gloomhaven in setup. So what they were saying is that all of the scenarios are going to be in a book similar to a Jaws of the Lion experience, but also all the monsters that you are facing are also going to be in a book. And so you open the book to scenario 3, you have all the maps, you have all of the monsters, you have all of the effects and everything in the storybook. And so you don't have tiles that you're looking through, you don't have monster decks, because instead you have a bag that has activation A, B, C, and D. And for each monster, you draw a tile and it's saying this monster is doing activation A, which is less severe than D.
Okay.
And so the bag is weighted more towards A. However, you can change the difficulty by throwing more Ds into the bag and making the game harder in that sense.
Yeah.
But it also kind of balances itself that not every monster is going to do its insane attack every turn or at the same time. And so that I thought that was really smart in how they did that. And they are pushing to Kickstarter in later this year, but it is one that I am very excited for. And I haven't seen much about it online, and I think it's starting to get a little bit more chatter, but it is one that definitely go, if you're a fan of Gloomhaven, go look it up, because it's going to fulfill way after you're going to get Frosthaven. So, right, like I don't know when they're promising fulfillment, but it's going to be way after they promise it. Just like Frosthaven was supposed to fulfill like 18 months ago or whatever. But, Frosthaven has started production. We got that update just recently. And so you're going to get Frosthaven if you backed it. And then I would say that this is, from the 2 hour or so demo that I did, this is one that I am very much excited for. Mm-hmm. And I think that the story holds up because I've heard really good things about Crimson Scales, which is the expansion. And so like they have that skill set on the team. So I don't expect this to be any less appealing, but I just wanted to say I don't have any idea what the story is, but it's like 25 characters. It's a big box that they are planning, but we'll definitely be posting about it on socials as it comes out. But like I am super pumped. I was blown away by it. Very cool. I mean, yeah, it's been, I don't know, how long has it been? 5 years since Gloomhaven came out, something like that. Has it? No, don't tell me that. That hurts. I feel like it's a 2017 game. You can look it up. No, but I feel like it is a 2017, guess. And like nice. that sounds so much closer than 5 years ago. Right. And I think, I don't know, I don't know that there have been, something really truly in its footsteps kind of thing, like really truly accomplishing the same things that it accomplished. There have probably been things that have tried and I've just kind of missed them. But yeah, like we've seen a push for some of these types of games. So you've seen like Lord of the Rings, Journey of Middle Earth, and those types of games come out. Yeah. So I don't know. So it's exciting that, someone's kind of trying to take up the torch, kind of pass the banner on and keep going. And especially like you said, since Frosthaven has been in the works for a very, very, very long time. And it is disappointing, right? It's disappointing that it's taken so long to kind of put out the next step. We had Jaws of Lion, but I don't know. It just feels like there's room. It feels like, again, this is a race for the galaxy. It's a Dominion, right? It's your first worker placement game. They kind of like busted out and they made their own genre, and that's maybe a little bit. Maybe that's too much to say because it's basically a whole bunch of other genres combined. Yeah, yeah. It's but like just the feel of a Gloomhaven type game. It's still number one and has been for like forever. So there's definitely people like it, and there's definitely room to continue to do it. So yeah, I feel like Gloomhaven is going to be like Kleenex. Right, it's going to be the trademark name that everyone's going to refer to these types of stuff. Oh, it's a Gloomhaven game, right? That's way easier than saying it's a immersive storytelling, card-driven action selection, dungeon crawling. Like, it's like Gloomhaven, and like I have been trying to describe games less by comparing them to other games. But sometimes when it's like this, or if it's like Aries and Race, right? That's a very easy and almost like needed comparison to make. Yeah. But I will say it does feel heavier than Gloomhaven, which is a big ask. Yeah. Right there are rewards. It's a double-edged sword, right? Like there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of statuses. There's a lot of like things like that, and that you have to kind of keep track of. There's different types of elements, and the element board is kind of cool because it's like the elements stay active until they get pushed off, kind of like a train style. So they get pushed down the board until they're pushed off, and they're active all the time while they're on that board. And it's different than like Gloomhaven, like they're gone in 2 rounds. So this one you can kind of plan a little bit better, and so there is that. And it's also going to be, I think, a little bit more cooperative in the sense of like you don't have initiative. You have the player phase, and you decide who goes when. Mm-hmm. So it's very much hey, like can you charge that? And if you can move here, then I'm not going to hit you in my AoE attack. Gotcha. And so it's like, is there any way that you can pull him? So it feels very Spirit Island in that sense. Yeah. Where it's like you kind of like work together to figure out the actions rather than the puzzle that Gloomhaven provides of you're going first. So now we have to optimize around you going first. Yeah. And now we have to do like tricky types of communication of like, I can't say the number, but I can say that it's on a scale of 1 to 99. Yeah, exactly. How low is your number? Yeah. But it is complex, which opens up a lot of I think, rewarding gameplay if you take the time to learn the system, and it's very much, an easy step if you already know Gloomhaven. But if you're coming in cold, it's going to take a while to learn. So
gotcha. Good to know.
Yeah, it's good to know, but I think any of these games is going to take... I mean, it took me like 3 days to learn Gloomhaven.
Right.
So,
it takes a long time to learn Pathfinder,
Yeah, very true.
Stuff like that, so...
Very true.
Yeah, these immersive RPG type games, they're often just heavy, so...
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, so that is Project Rove or Rove.
Exciting.
Yeah, so like we sat down and we did the demo with Professor Meg Shearboardham and Dan, and it was like I sat down and they started explaining the rules, and I'm just like, this is a lot. This is a lot. But they had like they're very much in early prototype stages for components, at least.
Yeah.
Like we were playing off of like they printed it from the computer map.
Yeah.
Like put it on like it is an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. We're playing with. So
like,
but
please
like
don't fold that.
right. But their player aids were already really well fleshed out, and so like once I understood like a couple of the key icons, I was very easily just able to look at the player aid and like, oh, okay, cool. I can get an understanding of what this is going to do and run with it.
Very fun.
So yeah, that I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be one that we're going to see how quickly I can hit that back button.
Cool.
There are a lot more things that we can and probably will talk about here on future episodes, but these are meant to be a little bit more bite size. And so I think we're going to call it there for the night for our topics, but we'll finish it off with a little bit of housekeeping. So you can find us anywhere on social media. The best places to find us are going to be on Instagram under Fantasy and Some Flights, or our Discord. We do communicate on there as well. So those are the two places that we're most active on. And if you could give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast or Spotify and share with a friend, we also would love that. It's always fun. We don't really ask for that a lot, so might as well ask for it every once in a while, right? But it really does help. It really does help. The internet algorithms do get pleased by that. So
that's true. Yeah.
We
SOE gods. Yeah.
yeah. We live
SEO.
our lives to serve the SEO gods.
SEO gods. That's right.
But
no, we actually don't. We actually just make content and hope you like it.
That's fair. But yeah, so really appreciate talking with you. It was good talking with you. I mean, it's like I just saw you yesterday. It's crazy. So,
I know.
But
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, buddy.